link administrative records from school districts, like databases that tell you which teachers a student had, what their test scores were, which classes they took, and so forth, to administrative tax and social security records, which allow us to see these same students' outcomes when they're adults. So these are outcomes like their earnings, which college they attend, whether they had a teenage birth or not, and a broad spectrum of other outcomes that we might ultimately care about. Now, there are two different studies that I'm going to talk about today, and I'm just going to give you a quick overview of the key results, and then I'm very happy to take your questions and discuss other issues. So the first study analyzed the long-term impacts of kindergarten quality. And what we did in that study is track 12,000 children who were randomly assigned to different kindergarten classrooms in Tennessee in the 1980s, and we tracked those kids until age 27. So just to be clear, this experiment was implemented in Tennessee around 1985. So we didn't directly design that experiment. I myself was in kindergarten along with these kids. I didn't have the insight to randomize my classmates into the classroom. But what we do is that we take this experiment and we find those kids in the data today, these 12,000 kids, and we ask how are they doing as a function of which kindergarten classroom they were in 25 years ago. Okay, so that's the first study, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. The second study is actually even on a much bigger scale. In this study, we tracked 1 million kids from elementary school to age 28 in a large urban school district in the Northeast. And the key advantage of that second study relative to the first is that we can actually isolate the impact of specific teachers on kids' outcomes rather than just the overall classroom environment. So due to some statistical issues that I'm not going to get into here, in the first study, you can only say that a certain class group produced better outcomes. That could be because it was a smaller class or because it had a different peer group composition. So one of the things you see very strongly in the data is that everybody in a class does better the more girls there are in a classroom, for example. Both the boys and the girls end up doing better. We don't know whether it's at the peers or the class size or the teachers in that first study. In the second study, we are going to be able to isolate the impacts of the teachers. And also what we're going to be able to do is evaluate a particular measure of teacher quality, which is very widely discussed today, as you all know, which are test score-based value-added measures of teacher quality. We're going to be able to evaluate whether those are good measures of teacher quality. I'll come to that later. So the first result that I want to show you, I'm going to show you just a series of results, give you a quick sense with a few simple graphs. The first thing I want to show you is that test scores are very highly predictive.